The flickering lights of the Mountain View gas station cast long shadows across the empty parking lot as Deputy Rodriguez settled in for another quiet night shift. She'd been working these overnight hours for nearly 6 years now, watching the steady stream of travelers making their way along Interstate 70. The small rural Colorado town rarely saw much excitement, especially at this hour. Taking a sip from her lukewarm coffee, she glanced at the security camera feeds displayed across the monitors in her small office. The usual scenes played out. Truckers filling up their rigs, families stretching their legs during long road trips, and locals grabbing late-night snacks. The clock on the wall showed 11:42 p.m., and the summer air outside remained thick and heavy despite the late hour. Deputy Rodriguez had just finished logging her routine paperwork when something caught her eye on camera 3. A teenage girl, probably no more than 14 or 15, stood near one of the pumps. There was nothing immediately alarming about her presence. She wore a gray hoodie despite the August heat, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. But something about her movements seemed off. The deputy leaned closer to the monitor, years of training kicking in, as she observed the girl's behavior. While pretending to fix her hair, the teenager's hands moved in an unusual pattern. She'd raise her palm, tuck her thumb in, then wrap her fingers down, over and over again, as if practicing something. A chill ran down Deputy Rodriguez's spine as her mind flashed back to last month's training seminar. The instructor had shown them videos of a hand signal that had gone viral on social media. A silent cry for help, specifically designed for victims of abuse or trafficking to use without alerting their captors. Her attention shifted to the man standing next to the girl. He wore an expensive-looking blazer that seemed out of place at a highway gas station. His posture was rigid, businesslike, and his hand never left the girl's shoulder. While other customers chatted, yawned, or showed signs of road weariness, this man remained eerily alert, his eyes constantly scanning the surroundings. The girl repeated the hand signal once more, this time slower and more deliberate, while pretending to scratch her head. Deputy Rodriguez's heart began to race, but her face remained calm as she reached for her radio. Years of experience had taught her that hasty reactions could make dangerous situations worse. She needed to be smart about this. Through the camera feed, she watched as the man guided the girl toward the convenience store entrance. Their body language told a story. His movements controlling and precise, hers hesitant and small. When the girl glanced directly at one of the security cameras, Deputy Rodriguez saw fear in her eyes, the kind that made her stomach knot. As a mother herself, the deputy felt a fierce protective instinct surge through her. But she'd learned long ago that emotions needed to be channeled into strategic action. Her mind raced through protocols and procedures, already forming a plan. One wrong move could spook the suspect or, worse, put the girl in greater danger. With steady hands, she began typing the license plate number of their vehicle into her system. A black SUV with out-of-state plates. Something wasn't adding up about this pair, and every instinct from her 15 years on the force told her this would not be an ordinary night shift after all. The clock ticked past midnight as Deputy Rodriguez initiated a series of careful moves that would soon unravel a story far bigger than their small Colorado town. What started as a subtle hand movement caught on a gas station security camera was about to become something much more significant. But first, she needed to proceed with utmost caution. Deputy Rodriguez couldn't shake off what she'd learned at last month's training session. They had spent hours studying the new ways people, especially young people, were using social media to call for help. That simple hand gesture, palm up, thumb tucked, fingers folded down, had spread like wildfire on TikTok and Instagram. At the time, she'd wondered if she'd ever actually see someone use it. Now, here it was, playing out on her security monitor. She watched the girl closely through the cameras. Every movement told a story. The way she kept her eyes down, how her shoulders hunched forward, making herself smaller. The worn hoodie she wore looked too big for her frame, almost like she was trying to disappear inside it. Despite the warm summer night, Goosebumps rose on Deputy Rodriguez's arms. Something about this situation felt terribly wrong. The man with her stood out like a sore thumb at this highway pit stop. His polished shoes and tailored blazer belonged in a downtown business meeting, not a late-night gas station. But it was his behavior that set off the loudest alarms. He maintained constant physical contact with the girl, a hand on her shoulder, her arm, her back. His eyes never stopped scanning the surroundings like a predator watching for threats. Drawing from her years of experience, Deputy Rodriguez knew she needed to think this through carefully. One wrong move could spook them, and then who knows what would happen to that girl. She'd seen too many cases where hasty actions led to tragic outcomes. No, this required a delicate touch. She picked up her phone and dialed Officer Chen, who was patrolling nearby. "Hey, I need you to swing by the station," she said quietly, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. "But come in casual, no lights, no sirens. Park around back. Something's not right here." While waiting for backup, she continued observing the pair through the cameras. The girl made the hand signal 2 more times, once while pretending to fix her ponytail, and again while seemingly stretching her arms. Each time, the man remained oblivious, too focused on watching for traditional signs of trouble to notice the modern cry for help. Deputy Rodriguez pulled up the training materials on her computer, double-checking the signal. She'd hate to cause a scene over a misunderstanding, but her gut told her this was real. 15 years on the force had taught her to trust that instinct. The same feeling had helped her spot a kidnapped child at a mall last year and break up a theft ring at the truck stop last summer. Through the window, she spotted Officer Chen's car pulling up quietly behind the station. 2 more patrol cars were on standby, just out of sight. They needed to be smart about this. Too many officers might trigger a dangerous reaction. The deputy had seen that happen before, and she wasn't about to let this girl become another statistic. She studied the man's expensive SUV through the cameras, out-of-state plates, tinted windows, and a subtle dealer emblem from somewhere in the Northeast. Everything about it screamed money, but something felt off, like it was trying too hard to look normal. The girl's face caught her attention again on the monitor. Despite her obvious fear, there was a spark of determination in her eyes every time she made that signal. She knew what she was doing. She was fighting back in her own way, using the tools of her generation. Deputy Rodriguez felt a surge of admiration for the teenager's courage. Adjusting her uniform and checking her equipment one last time, Deputy Rodriguez prepared to head outside. Years of training had prepared her for moments like this, but her hands still trembled slightly as she stood up. Not from fear, from determination. Whatever was going on here, she wasn't about to let that girl down. Sometimes the biggest cases start with the smallest signs, and that simple hand gesture might just be the key to uncovering something much bigger than anyone expected. Deputy Rodriguez took a deep breath and stepped out into the warm night air. Years of experience had taught her that these next few moments would be crucial. She clicked her radio twice, a silent signal to the officers waiting nearby that she was moving in. The plan was simple, but needed perfect timing. Walking with casual confidence, she headed toward the SUV. The smell of gasoline mixed with the sweet scent of pine trees from the nearby forest. Her footsteps echoed softly against the concrete as she approached, keeping her movements relaxed and routine. Just another officer doing a regular patrol check, nothing that would raise suspicion. The man noticed her approach immediately. His grip on the girl's shoulder tightened slightly, a tiny detail that spoke volumes to the deputy's trained eye. The girl's eyes darted toward her, then quickly down to the ground, but Deputy Rodriguez had caught a glimpse of hope in that brief look. "Evening, folks," she said warmly, maintaining a friendly tone she perfected over countless traffic stops. "Just doing our routine checks. Been seeing some issues with out-of-state plates lately." She gestured toward their vehicle, noting how the man's jaw clenched at her words. The man cleared his throat. "We're just passing through," he said, his voice carrying an accent that didn't match the license plates. Taking my niece to visit her mom in California. The story sounded rehearsed, too smooth, like he'd said it many times before. Deputy Rodriguez nodded, keeping her expression neutral while her mind raced. She'd heard similar stories before, too many times. But she needed to create an opening, a moment to separate them without raising alarm. Her hand rested casually on her belt, close to her radio, as she noticed Officer Chen quietly positioning himself near the store entrance. "Actually, sir, I noticed your taillights out," she said, gesturing toward the back of the SUV. "Mind if I show you? It's a safety concern, especially for night driving." The perfect excuse. Department protocol even encouraged separating people during vehicle checks when something seemed off. The man hesitated, his fingers flexing on the girl's shoulder. For a split second, Deputy Rodriguez thought he might run. But then he nodded stiffly. "Of course, officer." He turned to the girl. "Wait here." As they walked toward the rear of the vehicle, Officer Chen casually strolled past, positioning himself between the girl and the man. It was all choreographed to look random, but every move had been planned through years of training and experience. Deputy Rodriguez pointed to the perfectly functioning taillight, launching into a detailed explanation about traffic safety. She watched from the corner of her eye as another officer, dressed in plain clothes, approached the girl. They'd done this dance before, creating a safe space for victims to speak up. The man started to turn back, but Deputy Rodriguez smoothly stepped into his line of sight, asking about his insurance and registration. She could feel the tension rolling off him in waves now. His answers became shorter, his eyes constantly trying to look around her. Behind them, she knew the girl was finally getting her chance to speak freely. The plainclothes officer would be showing her badge, offering help, creating a bubble of safety away from her captor. These moments could change lives, or save them. The radios remained silent, but Deputy Rodriguez could sense the shift in energy. More officers were quietly arriving, taking positions around the gas station. Like a net slowly closing, but so subtle that an ordinary customer wouldn't notice anything unusual. She kept the conversation going, asking about his travel plans, his supposed niece, watching his story start to unravel under gentle questioning. Each contradictory detail, each nervous glance, confirmed what that brave girl's hand signal had first told them. Through her years on the force, Deputy Rodriguez had learned that sometimes the biggest cases crack open not with dramatic chases or gunfire, but with quiet conversations at gas stations in the middle of the night. The crucial moment arrived when the plainclothes officer led the young girl into the brightly lit convenience store, supposedly to help her find a snack. Inside, away from the man's watchful eyes, everything changed. The girl's shoulders shook as she finally let her guard down, tears streaming down her face as she whispered, "I want to go home." The store's fluorescent lights hummed overhead as the officer gently asked her name. "Katie," she managed between quiet sobs. "I'm from Minnesota. I've been gone for 3 weeks." Her voice trembled, but there was relief in her eyes, the kind that comes when a heavy weight finally lifts. Outside, Deputy Rodriguez kept the man occupied, watching his composure crack bit by bit. His story about being the girl's uncle fell apart with each question. When asked about basic details, her mother's name, their home address, even her birthday, he stumbled, his confident facade crumbling. The night shift cashier, an elderly gentleman who'd seen his share of strange situations, quietly helped by turning up the store's radio, making sure Katie's words wouldn't carry outside. He'd already sensed something was wrong when they'd first walked in. Certain things you just learn to notice after decades of working the late shift. Inside the store, Katie's words tumbled out like a dam breaking. She told the officer how she'd met him through an online game. He'd seemed so nice at first, understanding in a way her parents weren't. But then everything changed. He'd convinced her to meet him, just once, he'd said. That once turned into 3 weeks of terror, moving from state to state, never staying anywhere long enough to call for help. I saw that hand signal on TikTok months ago, she explained, wiping her eyes with a paper towel the cashier had quietly passed to her. I didn't think I'd ever need it, but I practiced it in my mirror sometimes. Just in case. She paused, her hands twisting the paper towel. I tried using it at other stores, but nobody noticed. Nobody until tonight. Deputy Rodriguez's radio crackled softly, the signal that Katie was safe and talking. Years of experience helped her keep her expression neutral as she continued questioning the man, even as her heart soared knowing the girl was out of danger. She watched his eyes dart toward the store entrance more frequently now, his answers becoming shorter, more agitated. The store's security cameras captured everything. Katie's brave revelation, the officer's careful work, and the moment when backup units silently pulled into position around the gas station. The footage would later become crucial evidence, but right now, it was simply witnessing a turning point in a young girl's life. Katie sat in the store's back office, wrapped in a blanket someone had found in the lost and found box. Her hands still shook as she dialed her parents' number on the officer's phone. The sound of her mother's voice breaking with relief on the other end of the line filled the small room. "Mom," was all she could say before both of them dissolved into tears. Meanwhile, the man outside began to sense something was wrong. He tried to step around Deputy Rodriguez, saying he needed to check on his niece. But she smoothly blocked his path, still asking questions, buying precious time as her fellow officers moved into their final positions. The entire gas station had become an invisible stage, every player knowing their part. Regular customers came and went, completely unaware of the drama unfolding around them. The night shift carried on as usual, but underneath that normal surface, a carefully planned rescue operation was reaching its conclusion. Katie hugged herself tightly in the office chair, finally feeling safe for the first time in weeks. The officer with her had promised her parents were already on their way. They'd never stopped searching, never given up hope. Outside, justice was about to be served, but in here, in this quiet back office, something just as important was happening. A young girl was getting her life back. Everything happened in a matter of seconds. The man's composure finally broke when he spotted additional officers emerging from the shadows. His hand darted toward his jacket pocket, but before he could reach whatever he was going for, 3 officers had him pinned against the SUV. The takedown was swift, professional, and quiet, exactly as they'd trained for countless times. Deputy Rodriguez watched as her colleagues secured the scene. The gas station's overhead lights cast long shadows across the pavement as they led the handcuffed man to a waiting patrol car. His expensive blazer didn't look so impressive anymore, and his confident smile had vanished completely. Now he just looked like what he really was, a predator caught in the act. Inside the store, the night shift worker had started brewing fresh coffee for the officers, his hands shaking slightly as he went about this simple task. "Never thought I'd see something like this at my little station," he said quietly to Deputy Rodriguez. That girl's signal. To think such a small thing could save a life. The investigation kicked into high gear immediately. Officers carefully processed the SUV, documenting everything they found. A detective who'd been called to the scene let out a low whistle when they discovered the man's phone. "Look at these messages," she said, showing Deputy Rodriguez the screen. This wasn't his first time. He's connected to something bigger. The phone contained encrypted messages, carefully hidden folders, and communication with others who shared his dark intentions. With each swipe and click, they uncovered more evidence of a larger network. The gas station's security cameras kept recording as police cars came and went, their red and blue lights painting the scene in alternating colors. Katie remained in the store's office, now talking with a crisis counselor who'd arrived to help. The counselor had brought her a clean sweater and some water, small comforts that meant the world right now. "You did everything right," the counselor told her gently. "That hand signal. You basically saved yourself. That takes incredible courage." Outside, the FBI had been notified. What started as a routine night shift at a small-town gas station was quickly becoming a multi-state investigation. Deputy Rodriguez watched as federal agents arrived, their unmarked cars pulling in quietly. She'd worked with them before on other cases, but this one felt different. This one had started because a young girl remembered a social media post about a hand signal. The night shift workers changed over, but the new arrivals quickly sensed the importance of what was happening. They kept the coffee flowing and made sure the officers had everything they needed. Sometimes the smallest gestures of support make the biggest difference in cases like these. The gas station's security cameras had captured everything: the initial signal, the careful police response, the final arrest. That footage would soon become crucial evidence, not just for this case, but for training other officers. It would show them exactly what to look for, how to respond, how a simple hand gesture could be the key to saving someone's life. As dawn approached, casting the first hints of pink and orange across the sky, Deputy Rodriguez took a moment to breathe. She watched as Katie's parents' car finally pulled into the parking lot, their headlights cutting through the early morning mist. They'd driven all night, not stopping once after getting the call that their daughter had been found. The reunion happened in the store's break room, away from prying eyes and cameras. The sound of family coming back together, tears, laughter, whispered words of love and relief, filtered through the closed door. It was moments like these that reminded every officer why they chose this job. The man's expensive SUV was towed away for further processing, and the regular morning customers began trickling in, unaware of the night's events. But something had changed at this ordinary gas station. A young girl's bravery, a deputy's attention to detail, and a simple hand signal had combined to crack open something much bigger than anyone expected. The morning sun cast long shadows across the police station as investigators dug deeper into the evidence. The man's phone had become a digital gateway into a dark world nobody wanted to believe existed. Computer experts worked tirelessly, breaking through layers of encryption, each discovery making their faces grow more serious. Deputy Rodriguez sat with the lead detective, watching as files and messages filled the screens before them. "It's like pulling threads on a sweater," the detective explained, running her hand through her graying hair. "Each piece we uncover leads to 10 more connections." Maps appeared on their screens, showing a network that stretched across multiple states. The man they'd arrested wasn't just working alone. His expensive clothes and car had been funded by something much bigger: a trafficking network that had managed to stay hidden by using the latest technology. But they'd never counted on being undone by something as simple as a tick-tock hand signal. In another room, Katie sat with trained interviewers who specialized in helping young survivors. They moved at her pace, letting her share her story without pressure. The girl who'd been so scared at the gas station was slowly finding her voice, and with it came vital information that could help others. There were other girls, she told them quietly, clutching a cup of hot chocolate someone had brought her. "I saw them sometimes when he was talking on his phone. They looked scared, just like I was." Each detail she remembered, no matter how small, helped investigators build a stronger case. Back in the computer lab, experts discovered hidden folders filled with conversations, meeting points, and money trails. The man had been careful, but not careful enough. His phone had automatically backed up everything, creating a digital trail that could now help law enforcement track down other victims. Katie's parents hadn't left her side, except when the interviews required privacy. Her mother had brought fresh clothes from home, simple things like her favorite sweater and worn jeans that helped her feel like herself again. Her father had been making calls to arrange counseling and support services, determined to help his daughter heal. The local news had gotten wind of the story, but Deputy Rodriguez and her team kept the details minimal. They focused instead on the hand signal itself, working with the media to spread awareness. "If one person learning this signal helped save Katie," she told her colleagues, "imagine how many others we could help if everyone knew it." Officers from other districts started calling, sharing similar cases they'd seen. The pattern was becoming clear. Predators using online games and social media to find victims. But now young people were fighting back with their own digital weapons. That simple hand gesture had become a silent revolution. The department brought in extra help to manage all the incoming information. The break room turned into a command center, with maps and photos covering the walls. Officers who weren't even on duty came in to help, everyone understanding the importance of what they'd stumbled upon. Katie's bravery had opened the door, and now they had a chance to help others. The investigation expanded hour by hour, with FBI agents coordinating with local departments across multiple states. What started as a quiet night at a gas station was becoming one of the largest trafficking investigations in the state's history. Deputy Rodriguez looked at a photo of the gas station's security cameras, thinking about how close they'd come to missing the signal. "We need to train everyone," she told her supervisor. "Not just officers, but store workers, teachers, anyone who might be in a position to notice." Her supervisor nodded, already making notes for new training programs. As evening approached, Katie and her parents prepared to head home. She'd been incredibly brave, but now she needed time to heal. Before leaving, she hugged Deputy Rodriguez tightly. "Thank you for seeing me," she whispered. Those simple words carried the weight of everything that had happened, and everything that was still to come. The investigation was far from over, but they'd made a start. Sometimes the biggest changes come from the smallest moments. A teenage girl remembering a social media post, a deputy noticing a subtle signal, and a community coming together to make sure it never happened again. The drive from Minneapolis felt endless to Katie's parents. Every mile marker that passed brought them closer to their daughter. But the 5-hour journey seemed to stretch on forever. They hadn't slept since getting the call, their hearts racing with a mixture of relief and worry that only parents could understand. The sun was just beginning to rise when they finally pulled into the police station parking lot. Katie's mom clutched the stuffed rabbit she'd brought from home, the one that had sat on Katie's bed every night since she disappeared. Her dad gripped the steering wheel, taking deep breaths to steady himself before they went inside. The reunion happened in a quiet room painted in soft blues and greens, specially designed for families coming back together. When the door opened and Katie saw her parents, time seemed to stand still. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Katie ran forward, practically falling into her mother's arms, her dad wrapping his arms around them both. "We never gave up," her mom kept whispering, running her hands through Katie's hair. "Not for a single day." The stuffed rabbit sat forgotten on a nearby chair as the family held each other, 3 weeks of fear and separation melting away in a flood of tears and whispered words of love. The crisis counselor watched from the doorway, tissues ready for anyone who needed them. Even the veteran officers nearby found themselves wiping their eyes. These moments, when families came back together, made all the late nights and hard work worth it. Katie's dad couldn't stop looking at his daughter, as if afraid she might disappear again if he blinked. "You're so brave," he told her, his voice rough with emotion. "That signal you remembered. You saved yourself, sweetheart. You saved yourself." The family sat together on the room's comfortable couch, Katie safely between her parents. They talked about simple things at first, their dog who'd slept by the front door every night waiting for her, her little brother who'd made her a welcome home banner, the neighbors who'd helped search and never lost hope. Outside the room, life at the police station continued. Officers came and went, phones rang, and the investigation moved forward. But in this quiet space, a family was beginning to heal. The counselor had explained that the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but they would face it together. Katie's mom brought out some photos on her phone, pictures of their dog with his favorite toy, her brother's science fair project, everyday moments from home that now seemed precious. "Everything's just how you left it," she assured Katie. "Your room, your books, everything's waiting for you." The counselor had arranged for a local trauma specialist to work with Katie once they got home. "Healing takes time," she explained to the family. but you've already shown incredible strength. All of you. She gave them contact information for support groups, both for Katie and her parents. As morning turned to afternoon, the family prepared to head home. Katie had given her statement, helped the investigators as much as she could, and now it was time to start rebuilding. The officers who'd worked the case came to say goodbye, each one touched by the courage of this young girl who'd remembered a simple hand signal. Deputy Rodriguez watched as Katie walked out of the station between her parents, holding their hands just like she had when she was little. The girl's shoulders were straighter now, her steps more confident. She'd been through something terrible, but she hadn't let it break her. Before they left, Katie turned back to the deputy. "Thank you," she said softly, then looked at all the officers gathered nearby. "Thank you for seeing me when I needed help." The words were simple, but they carried the weight of everything that had happened. As the family's car pulled away, headed home to Minneapolis, Deputy Rodriguez thought about all the other missing kids still out there. But now they had hope. A simple hand signal was spreading across social media, giving voice to those who couldn't speak freely. Katie's story would help others find their way home too. The weeks that followed brought both challenges and healing. Back in her own bedroom, Katie found comfort in familiar surroundings. Her favorite blanket, the string lights that made patterns on her ceiling, the photos of friends on her wall. But recovery wasn't always easy. Some nights, she'd wake up scared, but now her parents were there to comfort her. The family worked together with a kind-hearted counselor who specialized in helping young survivors. They met twice a week in a cozy office filled with plants and soft cushions. Healing isn't a straight line, the counselor would say, helping Katie understand that good days and hard days were both part of getting better. Her little brother became her unexpected rock. He'd sit with her while she did her homework, telling her silly jokes and sharing stories about what she'd missed. He didn't ask difficult questions or treat her differently. He just wanted his big sister back, and that normalcy helped more than anyone expected. Their dog, an old golden retriever, barely left Katie's side. It was like he understood she needed extra protection. He'd sleep outside her door at night and follow her around the house during the day. Sometimes, when words felt too hard, Katie would just sit with him, running her fingers through his soft fur. The local high school worked with the family to help Katie catch up on her studies. Her teachers showed incredible understanding, creating a special plan that let her work at her own pace. Her best friend would come over after school, sharing class notes and bringing homework, but mostly just being there, watching movies, painting nails, doing normal teenage things. At the police station, Deputy Rodriguez kept tabs on the case's progress. The investigation had grown bigger than anyone imagined. Katie's courage in using that hand signal had helped uncover a network that stretched across several states. Other young people were being found and brought home to their families, all because one girl remembered a signal from social media. Katie started seeing posts online about her story, not with her name or photo, but about how a teen at a gas station used the signal and was rescued. Comments flooded in from people learning the signal for the first time. "I'm teaching this to my kids," one mom wrote. "I'm showing this to everyone at work," posted a store manager. The hand signal started appearing everywhere. Schools included it in their safety presentations. Gas stations put up small signs showing how to do it. Local news stations ran stories about it. What started as a TikTok trend had become a powerful tool for safety, all because Katie was brave enough to use it that night. As the days passed, Katie slowly found her strength again. She started joining her mom for morning walks, feeling safer in the early sunlight. She helped her dad work in their small vegetable garden, finding peace in watching things grow. Small steps, day by day, brought back her smile. The crisis counselor had connected them with other families who'd been through similar experiences. These meetings helped Katie's parents too, giving them a place to share their fears and hopes with people who truly understood. They learned how to support their daughter while also taking care of themselves. 1 month after coming home, Katie did something remarkable. She asked to speak to other kids about online safety, not about her experience, but about protecting themselves. Her parents were worried at first, but the counselor helped them see how helping others could be part of healing. The family's bond grew stronger through it all. They started having regular game nights, something they hadn't done in years. Katie's mom learned to bake her favorite cookies. Her dad took up painting with her. They weren't very good, but it gave them time to talk and laugh together. Even on hard days, they faced things as a team. Katie kept the small things that made her feel safe. A nightlight, her dad's old sweatshirt, the family dog snoring softly by her bed. But she was also finding new strength. She'd shown incredible courage that night at the gas station, and that same courage was helping her heal, one day at a time. 1 year later, Deputy Rodriguez opened her email to find a special message. It was from Katie, attached with a photo of her speaking to a group of students about online safety. The deputy smiled, remembering that scared girl from the gas station who had shown such incredible bravery with a simple hand signal. The email told an amazing story of recovery and hope. Katie had become an advocate for safety awareness among teenagers. She worked with local schools, sharing important messages about online safety without ever mentioning her own experience. Her presentations always included teaching that vital hand signal, the same one that had saved her life that night. I taught the signal to over 1,000 students this year, Katie wrote in her email. Last week, a girl at the mall used it when she felt unsafe, and a store worker recognized it right away. They helped her call the police. That's 2 lives changed because of what happened that night. The investigation sparked by Katie's rescue had grown beyond anyone's expectations. 5 other young people had been found and brought home to their families. The network that had seemed so powerful was crumbling, one arrest at a time. It started with a single hand signal at a small gas station, but its impact had rippled across the country. The gas station itself had changed too. The night shift worker who had helped that evening now trained all new employees to recognize distress signals. They'd posted small signs near the register showing the hand signal, and other gas stations in the area had followed their lead. The simple gesture had become as important as knowing first aid or emergency procedures. Local police departments had updated their training programs. Every new officer learned about the signal, along with other subtle signs that someone might need help. Deputy Rodriguez often shared her experience during these training sessions, explaining how paying attention to small details could make a huge difference. Katie's family had grown stronger through their experience. Her mother had started a support group for parents, helping other families navigate the challenges of healing. Her father volunteered with organizations that work to keep kids safe online. Even her little brother had gotten involved, starting a safety awareness club at his middle school. The old golden retriever still slept outside Katie's room, but now it was more habit than necessity. Katie had reclaimed her life and her confidence. She had started taking photography classes, capturing beautiful moments that showed how she now saw the world, full of light and possibility rather than shadows. Social media, which had once been used to harm, had become a powerful tool for good. The hand signal had gone viral again, but this time with purpose. People shared stories of how knowing the signal had helped them or someone they knew. It had become more than just a TikTok trend. It was saving lives. Deputy Rodriguez printed Katie's email and added it to a special bulletin board in the station. It hung alongside other success stories, reminding officers why their work mattered. The photo showed Katie standing tall, speaking to a crowd, her face full of confidence and purpose. It was hard to believe she was the same girl from that security camera footage. The case had changed how many people thought about safety and awareness. Shopping malls, schools, and community centers had all adopted training programs. The hand signal had become part of a larger conversation about looking out for each other, about paying attention to those silent calls for help. As Deputy Rodriguez finished reading the email, a call came in about a possible situation at another gas station. She grabbed her keys, ready to respond. Thanks to Katie's story, she knew to look for the subtle signs, the quiet signals that someone needed help. Sometimes the smallest gestures could make the biggest difference. The night shift at that gas station 1 year ago had changed many lives, but perhaps its greatest impact was the ripple effect of awareness and hope it created. Katie's courage had shown that even in the darkest moments, a simple signal could light the way home.